It's well past nightfall. A man trudges along the path to Mansho Temple, illuminated with nothing but an oil lantern. With his katana, a samurai's soul, by his waist, he stands before the bridge leading towards the temple. Not knowing if he will ever cross it back, hears the sound of footsteps approaching. It's the young Gentaro Yukimura, arrived prepared for battle. Hey Gatayan, don't talk. Taking accountability is truly one of the most humbling experiences for an individual. Complaining to no one, gritting your teeth, and amending your mistakes is the journey that led these two men, the young Gentaro Yukimura of the Aizu Samurai and Hijikata Toshizo, the demon vice-captain of the Shinsengumi, to the doorsteps of Mansho Temple. So, I was rereading Tsutomu Takahashi's manga Sidooh and taking notes for a comprehensive review and analysis. I stumbled across this seemingly innocuous interaction. For some reason, chapter 142 resonated with me and honestly, took me aback. Reading a manga about the cruel, unforgiving, turbulent times leading to the end of the Tokugawa shogunate at the end of the Edo period, the events presented seem unrelatable and brutality seems more like a statistic than a travesty. But it's these subtle exchanges where we can peer into the characters and potentially see ourselves in them, revealing their underlying humanity. I was amazed at Takahashi's strength of leveraging these interactions and reactions of characters to reveal the motivations and mindsets so seamlessly. A couple days before this meeting on the bridge, Mozu informs Hijikata about a geisha named Kikusato who has information regarding the remnants of the Tenchugumi. Tasked with defending the waning shogunate forces, the Shinsengumi would love to gather intel on the growing rebel factions in the capital. Seizing this opportunity, Hijikata decides to go to Miyoshi alone and hear out this information. At this point, Hijikata doesn't know if the girl known as Kikusato has any valid information, or rather, any information at all. Neither does he know if she can be trusted, but despite all this uncertainty, without hesitation, he steels his resolve and strolls along into the lion's den to fulfill his duties. When we first get introduced to the character of Hijikata Toshizo, we see him brawling in the street with men, fighting over a petty argument about accommodation. Later, as the men of the Ronin Gumi are ordered to march back to Edo, Hijikata stands up and argues with these orders. Not only does he flat out refuse the orders, he ends up provoking the commander, ultimately leaving the force. In an era in Japan where social conformity and following the rules were paramount and fundamental to society, these actions are seen as either extremely brave or flat out naive. After meeting with Kikusato the geisha, Hijikata and Gentaro meet up to go to the residence of Kikusato's brother, Kitazato Heizo. Heizo would like to join the Shinsengumi, and in return, Kikusato would act as a spy, relaying information about the Tenchugumi. When they arrive, Gen is told to test Heizo's sword ability as they head outside. While clenching their bamboo swords to face off, Gen tests Heizo's resolve and fighting spirit. Looking dead set onwards, like a predator eyeing its prey, Gen calls off the test as Heizo's found standing still, a deer in the headlights. He's no good. To Gen's shock, Hijikata still tells Heizo to come to the Shinsengumi base tomorrow. Confused and oblivious to the deal involving Heizo and his sister, Gen intercepts Heizo the next morning on the way to the Shinsengumi barracks. Wanting to scare the new recruit, he asks him to wear the light blue hawari and patrol the streets with him. The striking and vibrant light blue hawari of the Shinsengumi is a symbol of authority, but anyone wearing it is now a target. Wearing such a bold statement isn't for the weak of heart, and Gen really hoped this would deter Heizo, changing his mind, ultimately leading him to quit. Gentaro Yukimura, the younger of the two Yukimura brothers, is also a character cut from the same cloth as the vice-captain. Naive due to his youthfulness and his black and white outlook on the world, he too beats to his own drum, only able to be tamed by his older brother Shotaro. A former child mercenary who used to kill mercilessly under Rugi's orders is now attempting to, out of the goodness of his own heart, change Heizo's resolve and force him to quit the Shinsengumi. Gen knows that Heizo isn't cut out for this line of work and will just die. Despite having good intentions, the world doesn't always reward you. Heck, it may even place heavy consequences on those exact actions. During the patrol, Gen and Heizo are confronted and attacked by two men, where Heizo freezes. Backing up into the wall of the alleyway, he watches as that's all his body can muster. Gen slays the two men and tells a visibly shaken Heizo to leave, never come back, as he's not cut out for this line of work. Upon returning home, the men keeping an eye on Kikusato's house see Heizo in a striking blue hawari. The men inform Yajima, the leader of the Tenchugumi, and return to their residence, accusing Kikusato of being a spy. She split up from her brother and is taken hostage to lure out Hijikata and the Shinsengumi. Despite Heizo's effort trying to clear the air, His efforts are futile as the weak and powerless Heizo is slain in cold blood at the doorsteps of his own home. He was cut down for the crime of being loosely connected to the Shinsengumi, and after discovering the new recruit's fate, Hijikata confronts the sleeping Gen and tells him he's dead. And now we find both Gen and Hijikata at the bridge, ready to cross into Monsho Temple with nothing but their weapons and their sense of responsibility. It may seem like, of course they had to come to the bridge. They have to avenge Heizo. But really, do they? Gen? A former child mercenary turned samurai? What does he care about a single life? Heck, he even took 2 lives the night previous. Hijikata, on the other hand, is even more surprising. What does the vice captain, the second in command of the Shinsengumi, have to gain from saving a single hostage? He's not so naive. He knows that she's been captured for the sole purpose of luring him out. Not only that, Hijikata so far is portrayed as a misogynist. During literally his first interaction with Mozu, we see him exclaiming, "Woman, a man has bowed his head in front of you. Do what he says now." 3 nights ago, this same Hijikata met Kikusato and before using her for information, used her for her beauty as he lusted over the geisha. Seeing her as a tool for his lust before seeing her as a useful source of information, we've seen Hijikata's attitude towards women, but nonetheless, that exact same Hijikata is here, staring death in its eyes, to save this female hostage he had met a mere 3 nights ago. What brings these men here? What did they even have to gain? Surely it can't be that much. Yet, both these men are united at this bridge because of one thing: accountability. Looking at the surface, this may look like a simple revenge story, which it may as well have been and gone down that route, but these are not men on a path to exact revenge on the Tenchugumi who had slain Heizo. No. This was about making a grave error despite the intentions behind it, and doing not what is right, but what has to be done to attempt to correct it. A person died because of me, and this is a seed I've sown. I'll reap it myself. Despite his assistant Soji Okita asking Hijikata to assist him, Hijikata simply replies, "No, you can't." Similarly, Gen, instead of asking for the support of his brother, only asked for the location of the Tenchugumi and nothing else. To amend one's wrongs, one must be willing to face the consequences and endure the hardships which come down that tumultuous path. Before embarking on his quest for accountability, Gen says to his brother, "A person died because of me." Shoto responds, "Don't say anything." Not don't do anything, but don't say anything. Sometimes the battle is your own fight. Sometimes, instead of complaining and blaming the world around you and vocalizing, internalize, reflect, and then walk forward. Hijikata also tells Gen the same thing at the base of the bridge. Don't talk, as actions speak much louder than words. There's always an easy way out. Some problems can be swept under the rug. The world doesn't know what you've done, and even if they did, they aren't going to come knocking on your doorsteps with pitchforks. But the world also isn't going to come back and fix your wrongs. It's all on you. Stand up, swallow your pride, accept your weakness, walk forward, and be held accountable, and be ready for the consequences that follow. By the way, is there something you want? Huh? No, not really, idiot. You're quite the lonely person, huh? I'm the same, young Gen. I don't have the mind to talk about things like controlling the country or about promotions. I'm just simply Hijikata Toshizo of the Shinsengumi. When we make a mistake, we must humble our ego and expose a vulnerable version of ourselves for the world to judge and do as it seems fit. But oftentimes, we miss the sister of accountability, responsibility. Accountability cannot be achieved without responsibility. To be responsible is not to be self-sufficient, never asking for help, but to take ownership, fulfilling one's duties, never burdening those around you with what you yourself can handle, and ultimately being dependable. Just like Gen, sometimes you just need to swallow your words without complaint and do what must be done, dedicating your time, cleaning up after yourselves, being a good partner in group assignments, spreading positivity, working towards a better future. Things don't get done by not doing them. Rome wasn't built in a day, but Rome wasn't built by not building Rome. Sometimes you just gotta bite down on that mouthpiece, close your mouth, and do what has to be done. To little or no fanfare, there is no shame in doing the dirty work. Honestly, I envy Hijikata and Gen, being able to take accountability without any ulterior motives or even complaining. The greatest are those who are lost at time, those whose works are so ubiquitous it overshadows their existence. Hijikata and Gen aren't necessarily characters I strive to be like, but I admire their strengths and learn from their weaknesses. They aren't perfect, far from it, but you can admire the beauty in striving towards change, as that is, at its core, what it means to be human. Without backup, Hijikata and Gen stand in front of the bridge, preparing to cross. I still don't want to die. Yukimura Gentaro of Aizu's Byakurentai won't drop dead in a place like this. Fear isn't something that can be avoided. It's only natural, an innate evolutionary quirk which keeps us alive. But in a world where people die because they are weak, we know Hijikata and Gen won't, and they can't, as they are the strongest. Not because they're the most skilled, not because they have the most experience, but because they broke the walls of their ego, eliminated their cowardice, and swallowed their hubris. It's quite scary, huh? Yeah, it's scary. After a deep breath of recollection, Hijikata says, well, let's go, setting off across the bridge, facing the consequences of their mistake, taking accountability.